Bears surrounded the little wolf. Then a terrible thing happened. The little wolf, Finn, had strayed too far from his pack. He had been chasing a rabbit deep into the forest when he realized he was lost. The trees loomed tall, their twisted branches blocking out the moonlight. A chilling wind rustled the leaves, making the night even more ominous. Finn turned in circles, his heart pounding. He sniffed the air, trying to catch the scent of his family, but instead, he caught something else, a strong, musky smell. Then, he heard it. Heavy footsteps. Low grunts. The ground trembled beneath him. Finn's fur bristled as massive shadows emerged from the darkness. Bears. 4 of them. Their eyes glowed like embers in the night, and their growls sent shivers down his spine. The little wolf backed up, but there was nowhere to run. The bears closed in, their hulking bodies forming a terrifying circle around him. Finn whimpered, crouching low. His small frame was nothing compared to their sheer size and power. One of the bears, the largest among them, stepped forward. Its breath was hot and foul, its claws glinting under the moonlight. It let out a thunderous roar that shook the trees. Finn shut his eyes, bracing for the inevitable. Then a terrible thing happened. The silence was broken by a piercing scream, but it wasn't Finn's. The giant bear staggered backward, its roar turning into a pained howl. Dark shadows moved swiftly through the trees. Glowing eyes, sharper than the bear's, appeared from the darkness. Finn's pack had arrived. His mother, a massive silver wolf, leaped onto the back of the nearest bear, sinking her fangs deep into its thick fur. His older siblings darted in, snapping at the bear's legs, moving like ghosts in the night. Chaos erupted. The bears roared and swiped, but the wolves were too fast. The leader bear turned to flee, but before it could, Finn's father lunged at its throat with a snarl that echoed through the forest. Finn scrambled to his feet, watching in awe as his family drove the bears away. One by one, the massive creatures retreated, their roars fading into the distance. Finn trembled, still in shock, as his mother nuzzled him gently. "You are never alone, little one," she whispered. As his pack surrounded him, Finn realized the terrible thing that had happened. The bears had made a mistake. They had messed with the wrong family. Finn's legs trembled as he stared up at the massive creatures around him. Their fur was thick and dark, their claws sharp enough to tear through bark. The largest bear, a towering beast with scars across its muzzle, took a step closer. Finn knew he was too small to fight. Running wasn't an option either, the bears had already cut off every escape route. His breath came in short, panicked bursts. Was this the end? The biggest bear raised a paw, its curved claws gleaming in the moonlight. Finn flinched, bracing for impact. Then a terrible thing happened. A deafening snarl erupted from the darkness. It wasn't the bears. It was deeper, colder. The ground trembled as something massive moved in the shadows. The bears hesitated, their ears twitching. Finn turned his head slowly, his fur standing on end. 2 glowing eyes stared from the undergrowth, unblinking. Then another pair. And another. The shadows came alive. From the darkness, they emerged. Not wolves. Not bears. Something worse. Massive, gaunt creatures with hollow eyes and twisted limbs slithered into the clearing. Their fur was matted, their bodies unnaturally long, their mouths stretching too wide with jagged teeth. The bears, so confident just moments ago, took a step back. Finn had heard the stories, the ones whispered by the elders late at night. The night stalkers. Beasts that lurked in the deepest parts of the forest, appearing only when the moon was full. Creatures that even the strongest predators feared. The largest bear let out a warning growl, but the creatures didn't flinch. Instead, one of them lunged. It moved too fast. Before Finn could process it, the night stalker clamped its jaws onto the bear's shoulder. The beast roared in agony, trying to shake it off. Another stalker leaped, dragging its claws down the bear's side. The other bears scattered, their deep growls turning to terrified whimpers. Finn's heart pounded. He had to move. He had to. A cold breath touched his neck. He turned. One of the stalkers was inches away, its mouth stretching into something that almost resembled a grin. Finn stumbled back, his paws slipping on the dirt. The creature let out a low, rattling sound, laughter. It was playing with him. Suddenly, a fierce howl split the night. A sound Finn recognized immediately. His pack. From the trees, shadows burst forth, wolves, dozens of them, their eyes blazing with fury. Finn's mother led the charge, her silver fur glowing under the moonlight. His father was right behind her, teeth bared. The battle that followed was unlike anything Finn had ever seen. The stalkers twisted and lunged, their movements unnatural, but the wolves fought with everything they had. The air filled with snarls, yelps, and the snapping of jaws. Finn tried to crawl away, but another stalker leaped in front of him. Its head tilted, its eerie grin widening. It was toying with him. Then, a blur of silver. His mother. She crashed into the creature, sinking her teeth into its throat. The stalker shrieked, a sound so chilling it sent shivers through Finn's bones. His mother didn't let go. She held on, even as the creature thrashed. But the stalker wasn't alone. Another one crept up behind her. Its claws raised. No. Finn barked. Before he knew what he was doing, he leaped forward, snapping at the creature's leg. It wasn't a strong bite. Finn was still small. Still weak. But it was enough. The stalker hissed and turned toward him, just as his father slammed into its side, throwing it to the ground. The battle raged on. Wolves and stalkers. Snarls and shrieks. Blood and moonlight. Then, just as suddenly as they had arrived, the stalkers vanished. They melted into the darkness, their glowing eyes retreating into the depths of the forest. The wolves stood, panting, their fur matted with dirt and blood. The bears were gone, long since fled. Silence settled over the clearing. Finn's mother limped toward him, pressing her nose against his fur. His father stood over them both, his eyes scanning the trees. "They'll be back," he said. His voice was low, grim. Finn shivered. He knew his father was right. This wasn't over. The night stalkers would return. And next time, they wouldn't just be hunting the bears.
Finn's paws trembled against the cold earth as he stared at the monstrous bears surrounding him. Their fur bristled under the silver moonlight, their breath came out in heavy, misty clouds, and their eyes gleamed with hunger. Finn had never felt so small, so helpless. The largest bear, a towering beast with a scarred muzzle and deep-set black eyes, stepped forward. It growled low and deep, the kind of sound that sent prey animals into a frozen panic. Finn tried to back away, but there was nowhere to run. The bears had him trapped. The leader raised a massive paw, its claws reflecting in the dim light, and swung it down toward Finn. And then, terrible thing happened. A deafening roar shattered the night. Not from the bears. From something far worse. Chapter 2, The Shadow in the Trees. The moment the sound ripped through the air, the bears flinched. Their leader hesitated, its massive paw stopping just inches from Finn's head. Then the trees moved. Dark shapes emerged from the dense foliage. At first, Finn thought they were wolves, his pack coming to save him, but as they stepped into the moonlight, his stomach turned with fear. They weren't wolves. They weren't even animals. They were night stalkers. The elders spoke of them in whispers, creatures of nightmare, appearing only when the forest was shrouded in moonlight. Their bodies were long and gaunt, their eyes sunken pits of darkness. Their limbs twisted unnaturally, moving like liquid shadows. And worst of all, they smiled. Not in a way that showed warmth or kindness. No, their grins were wide and stretched too far across their thin faces, revealing rows of jagged teeth. The bears, once so confident, now stepped back. Even their leader lowered its head, recognizing a greater predator. The night stalkers had no fear. One of them, taller than the rest, turned its head toward Finn. Slowly, deliberately, it took a step forward. Finn's blood ran cold. The bears were no longer his biggest problem. Chapter 3, The Pack's Arrival. Just as the first night stalker reached for Finn, the forest erupted with a new sound, howls. Not the eerie, hollow calls of the stalkers. These howls were strong, fierce. His pack. From the trees, a surge of wolves burst into the clearing. Leading them was Finn's mother, her silver fur glowing in the moonlight. Behind her, his father, a massive black wolf with piercing yellow eyes, charged with deadly intent. The battle began before Finn could even blink. The stalkers moved with unnatural speed, dodging the wolves' attacks with eerie grace. But the pack was relentless. They struck in perfect coordination, their fangs flashing, their claws raking against shadowy flesh. Finn scrambled backward, his small form pressed against the dirt as chaos erupted around him. He watched as his mother lunged at one of the creatures, her teeth sinking into its throat. The stalker shrieked, a sound so bone-chilling that even the bears recoiled. His father was even more brutal. He fought like a storm, his claws tearing into anything that dared threaten his pack. Finn's heart pounded as he watched. His family was fighting for him. But something was wrong. The stalkers. They weren't fighting to kill. They were playing. They dodged, they struck, but they never aimed for fatal wounds. They moved like a pack of twisted hunters, testing their prey, enjoying the chase. And that's when Finn realized. This was just the beginning. Chapter 4, A Marked Prey. The battle raged on. The wolves fought fiercely, their fangs flashing in the dim light, but the stalkers always seemed one step ahead. No matter how deep a wound was inflicted, the creatures barely flinched. Then, the tallest stalker turned its attention back to Finn. It was ignoring the battle, ignoring the wolves. It only wanted him. Before Finn could react, it lunged. A flash of black fur intercepted the attack. His father, the massive wolf, tackled the creature mid-air, slamming it into the ground. The stalker let out a strange, warbling laugh, as if it was amused. Finn's father didn't hesitate. He clamped his jaws onto the stalker's throat and tore. For the first time, the creature let out a true scream. Dark, inky liquid spilled onto the ground as the stalker convulsed. It writhed, its body twisting in ways that no living thing should. Then, with one final shudder, it melted into the shadows. The other stalkers froze. Their grins vanished. Then, one by one, they slipped back into the darkness. The fight was over. But Finn knew. It wasn't a victory. Chapter 5. The Whisper in the Wind. Silence settled over the clearing. The wolves stood panting, their fur matted with blood and dirt. The bears fled into the night, more afraid of the stalkers than the pack. Finn's mother ran to him, pressing her nose against his fur. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head, though his legs still trembled. His father stood over them, eyes locked on the spot where the stalker had disappeared. His ears twitched, listening to the night. Then Finn heard it. A whisper. Not from his pack. Not from the wind. From the shadows. It slithered through the air, curling around his ears like a ghostly breath. "Not yet, little wolf, but soon." Finn's breath hitched. His mother tensed. His father's fur bristled. The pack was silent, each wolf listening, each one knowing. The night stalkers weren't gone. They were watching, waiting. And next time, they wouldn't come alone. The moon hung high above the towering trees, casting a pale glow over the forest. The young wolf, Finn, had wandered too far from his pack while chasing a rabbit. His small paws barely made a sound as he moved through the thick undergrowth. The scent of the rabbit was still fresh. He could almost taste the thrill of the hunt. But something in the air changed. A heavy, musky scent filled his nostrils. It wasn't his pack. It wasn't the rabbit. It was something big. Finn froze, his ears twitching. A low growl rumbled behind him. Slowly he turned. His heart nearly stopped. There's 4 of them. Their massive bodies loomed in the darkness, their eyes glinting with an eerie hunger. They weren't just wandering through the woods. They were hunting him. Finn's instincts screamed at him to run. His legs tensed, ready to bolt. But the bears moved in, forming a deadly circle around him. He had nowhere to go. The largest bear, a scarred brute with torn ears and deep claw marks across its snout, stepped forward. Its growl sent shivers down Finn's spine. This was it. He was trapped. And then, terrible thing happened. Chapter 2, Shadows in the Dark. A sound echoed through the trees. Not the bears. Not the wind. Something else. A whisper. It slithered through the air like a dying breath. Finn's fur bristled. The bears hesitated. Even the leader, who had been moments away from striking, paused. Its ears twitched. Its nostrils flared. Something else was here. And it was watching. Finn turned his head toward the darkness beyond the trees. His breath caught in his throat. Dozens of them.
Glowing like embers in the blackness. They weren't wolf eyes. They weren't bear eyes. They belonged to something unnatural. The Night Stalkers. The stories had always been told in hushed voices around the dens. Creatures that moved like smoke, appearing only when the moon was full. Their bodies twisted and stretched like living shadows. Their grins were too wide, their voices too soft. They didn't hunt for hunger. They hunted for fun. The bears, so confident just moments ago, stepped back. Their growls turned uncertain. Even the largest of them seemed to recognize the mistake it had made. Finn wanted to run, but he couldn't. The Night Stalkers were already closing in. Chapter 3, The First Attack. The tallest stalker, its form shifting like liquid darkness, slithered forward. Its hollow eyes locked onto Finn. Its mouth stretched into an unsettling grin. It spoke. Not in words, but in thoughts. You are alone, little wolf. Finn's body refused to move. No pack. No help. No escape. The whisper curled around his ears, sinking into his mind like claws. His heart pounded. His vision blurred. The lead bear shook its head, shaking off the unnatural trance. It reared onto its hind legs, letting out a furious roar. The stalker laughed. It lunged. The bear swiped, its massive claws raking through the air, but the stalker was faster. It moved like mist, slipping around the attack. In one swift motion, it landed on the bear's back. Its long fingers dug into the bear's flesh. The bear let out a blood-curdling roar. It tried to shake the creature off, but the stalker only laughed louder. Then, the others attacked. The forest erupted into chaos. Chapter 4, The Pack Arrives. The bears, once mighty hunters, were now prey. The stalkers twisted and slashed, their bodies bending in unnatural ways. The bears roared and fought, but it was useless. They were too slow. Finn could do nothing but watch. Then a howl. Not just any howl. His pack. A silver streak shot through the trees, his mother. Her fangs flashed as she tackled one of the stalkers, slamming it into the dirt. The other wolves followed, their howls splitting the night. The battle shifted. The stalkers, who had been toying with their prey, now had to fight. Finn's father lunged at the tallest stalker, his massive jaws snapping inches from its throat. The creature hissed, dodging at the last second. But wolves weren't like bears. They weren't slow. They hunted as a unit. And they were relentless. The stalkers screeched as they were overwhelmed. For the first time, their grins faltered. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, they vanished. The shadows swallowed them whole. The whispers faded. Silence. The battle was over. But Finn knew. This wasn't a victory. Chapter 5, The Marked One. Finn's mother rushed to his side, nudging him gently. Are you hurt? He shook his head. But his body still trembled. His father stood at the edge of the clearing, eyes locked on the darkness where the stalkers had disappeared. His ears twitched. Something was still wrong. Finn's fur prickled. A cold sensation crawled up his spine. Then he heard it. A whisper. Soft. Gentle. Not yet, little wolf, but soon. Finn shuddered. His mother tensed. His father's tail bristled. The pack stood together, staring into the night. Because they all knew. The Night Stalkers weren't gone. They were waiting. And next time. They wouldn't come alone. The night was deep, the sky draped in a thick veil of clouds that swallowed the moon's glow, casting the forest into an eerie, shifting darkness. The wind howled through the trees, rattling the branches like ancient bones clattering in the abyss. Finn, a small grey wolf, stood frozen, his body trembling as he faced the massive forms of the 4 bears that had him completely surrounded. Their hulking bodies blocked every escape route, their deep, rumbling breaths filling the air with an overwhelming musk of wild power and primal hunger. Finn's heart pounded so hard that he thought it might burst from his chest. He had made a mistake, a terrible, fatal mistake. It had started as a simple chase. The scent of a rabbit had lured him deeper into the woods, further than he had ever ventured alone. He had felt the rush of the hunt, the thrill of the chase, but the rabbit had been too fast, too clever. And now, instead of a meal, he was staring into the eyes of death itself. The leader of the bears, an enormous beast with a torn ear and jagged scars across its snout, let out a low growl that made the very ground tremble beneath Finn's paws. He had no way out. Running was pointless. Fighting, impossible. Then a terrible thing happened. A sound. Not a growl. Not the rustling of trees. Something else. A whisper. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once. A cold, curling voice that slithered through the air like a living thing, wrapping itself around Finn's ears, sending an unbearable chill down his spine. The whisper was not a voice but an absence of sound, a hollow echo of something unnatural. It was a voice without a body, a breath without a speaker. The bears froze. Finn watched, wide-eyed, as the massive creatures that had been seconds away from tearing him apart suddenly hesitated. Their heads turned, nostrils flaring as they sniffed the air, their black eyes scanning the shifting shadows between the trees. Then, Finn saw them. Eyes. Dozens of them. Glowing in the darkness like smoldering embers, floating, shifting, watching. And then, the shadows moved. They were not wolves. They were not bears. They were something else. Their bodies were too long, too thin, too broken. Their limbs bent in ways that no creatures should, their spines twisting unnaturally as they emerged from the darkness. Their faces were almost human, but not. Their mouths were too wide, their teeth too sharp, their fingers too long, stretching toward the trembling wolf with slow, deliberate intent. Finn had heard the stories. The Night Stalkers. They were myths. Legends whispered among the pack, stories told to frighten pups into obedience. Creatures that came when the moon was high, creatures that didn't hunt for food but for fun. The bears knew the stories, too. The scarred bear, the leader of the pack, took a cautious step back, its massive form shaking. The other bears began to shift, their confidence breaking, their primal instincts screaming at them to run. And then, the stalkers attacked. It happened in an instant. One moment the bears were standing firm, the next, the shadows exploded. The stalkers moved too fast, faster than anything Finn had ever seen. They didn't run. They didn't pounce. They slid through the air like liquid darkness, closing the distance between them and the bears in a blink. The first bear roared in agony as a stalker latched onto its back. Its long, skeletal fingers sank into the bear's flesh, not tearing, not cutting, but sinking in like mist, like smoke, like poison. The bear thrashed wildly, but the stalker's grin only widened. The second bear tried to run, but another stalker appeared before it, blocking its escape. It had never been there before. It had simply appeared. Finn could do nothing but watch in horror as the bears, the mighty predators of the forest, were reduced to prey. Their roars turned to shrieks. Their movements became frantic, desperate. The stalkers weren't just attacking. They were playing. The scarred leader bear locked eyes with Finn for just a second. There was something there, something that hadn't been there before. Terror. Then, it turned and ran. It
didn't fight. Didn't look back. Ran. The others tried to follow, but it was too late. The stalkers were already on them. Finn's breath came in short, ragged gasps. His body refused to move. The tallest stalker turned its hollow, empty eyes toward him, its grin widening, its long fingers stretching toward him. And then, howl. Not a whisper. Not a laugh. A wolf's howl. His pack. From the trees, a silver streak shot forward. His mother. She did not hesitate. She lunged at the tallest stalker, her fangs sinking into its throat. The creature shrieked, its body twisting unnaturally, trying to slip away, but she did not let go. Another figure crashed into the fray. His father, a massive black wolf with golden eyes burning with fury. His claws ripped through another stalker, tearing its shadowy flesh apart. And then the rest of the pack came. Wolves poured from the trees, their howls filling the night, their fangs flashing like silver lightning. The stalkers laughed. Not in pain, not in fear, but in amusement. This was a game to them. The battle erupted. The stalkers moved like smoke, dodging, twisting, bending in impossible ways, slipping through the wolves' attacks as if they were dancing. But the wolves were fast. They fought together. For every attack the stalkers dodged, another wolf was already waiting, striking, biting, tearing. And then the laughter stopped. The stalkers hesitated. For the first time their grins faltered. And just like that they vanished. They didn't run. They didn't retreat. They simply disappeared. The forest fell silent. Finn's mother rushed to his side, her breath warm, her voice sharp. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head. His body was trembling, his legs weak, but he was alive. His father stood at the edge of the clearing. His golden eyes locked on the darkness where the stalkers had vanished. His ears twitched. Then Finn heard it. A whisper. Until. Not yet, little wolf, but soon. Finn shuddered. His mother tensed. His father's tail bristled. The pack was silent, every wolf listening, every wolf knowing. The night stalkers weren't gone. They were waiting. And next time, they wouldn't come alone. The forest was silent. Not the natural silence of night, filled with the distant hoots of owls or the rustling of leaves in the wind. No, this silence was unnatural, heavy, suffocating, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Finn lay still, his body pressed against the cold earth, his fur damp with sweat. His mother and father stood close, their ears pricked, their golden eyes scanning the shadows. The rest of the pack was forming a tight circle, their bodies tense, their breath coming in slow, controlled pants. They had fought off the night stalkers. But Finn knew, this was not over. The whisper still echoed in his mind. Not yet, little wolf, but soon. What did it mean? Were they still here? Were they watching from the shadows? The thought made his skin crawl, made his paws tremble against the dirt. His mother pressed against him, her warmth soothing, but her body was tense, coiled like a spring ready to strike. Then, without warning, the trees moved. At first, Finn thought it was just the wind, a trick of his tired mind. But then he saw it. The shadows were shifting, bending, growing. The trees themselves seemed to lean closer, their branches twisting unnaturally, stretching toward the pack like skeletal fingers. The air grew thick, heavy, buzzing with an invisible force that made Finn's fur stand on end. Then the whispers returned. Until. Freeware. But this time they weren't words. They were laughter. Low. Amused. Hungry. Finn's father let out a deep growl, his golden. Finn's father let out a deep growl, his golden eyes burning in the darkness. The other wolves followed his lead, baring their fangs, their bodies low to the ground, ready to fight. But what were they fighting? The stalkers were gone, weren't they? The forest disagreed. The trees creaked as if whispering secrets to one another. The ground beneath Finn's paws felt wrong. It wasn't solid anymore. It was soft, shifting, as though something was breathing beneath it. Then the first wolf screamed. Finn spun around just in time to see Corin, a young hunter from the pack, being dragged into the ground. No, not the ground. Shadows. They had come alive. Black tendrils, twisting and writhing like living smoke, wrapped around Corin's legs, yanking him downward. His claws scraped at the earth, kicking up dirt, but it was useless. He was being pulled into nothingness. His mother lunged. She was fast, faster than any wolf in the pack, but the moment her jaws snapped at the tendrils, her entire body froze. She hung in the air, suspended, her muscles locking, her breath hitching in her throat. The laughter grew louder. Finn watched, horrified, as the shadows began to crawl up her fur, slithering into her ears, her mouth, her eyes. His father roared. With a single powerful strike, he tore through the tendrils with his claws. The shadows shrieked. The moment they recoiled, his mother collapsed, gasping for breath, shivering violently. Finn rushed to her side, but before he could reach her, the whisper returned. "You're learning, but not fast enough." Then the ground split open. A pit of darkness, endless, hungering, and from within, they emerged. Not stalkers, not bears, something worse. The hollow ones.
The ground split open. Not like a crack in the earth, it didn't break. It peeled. Like something was shedding its skin, revealing the void beneath. A darkness that wasn't just absence of light, it was alive. It swirled and pulsed like a living thing, breathing, shifting, watching. Then, from within, they emerged. Not the stalkers. Not bears. Something worse. They had no fur, no flesh. Just towering figures of hollowed-out darkness, stretched too thin, their bodies flickering between solid and smoke. Their heads were smooth, featureless, but their mouths were too wide, too deep, filled with spirals of teeth that never ended. The hollow ones. Finn had never heard of them before, but the way his father tensed, the way his mother's breath hitched in her throat, they had. The pack knew what these things were. And they were terrified. One of the hollow ones took a step forward. The ground did not move. It didn't disturb the dirt or leave footprints. It was not really there. And yet, Finn could feel it staring at him. It raised a hand. Long, claw-like fingers, stretching toward him. Then, his father attacked. It happened in an instant. One moment the hollow one was reaching for Finn, the next, his father slammed into it, claws ripping through its form. It shrieked, a sound that didn't belong to this world, a sound that rattled the trees and made the stars above flicker. But the hollow one didn't fall. Instead, it laughed. A deep, hollow, endless laughter that echoed through the entire forest. Then, it moved. Faster than anything Finn had ever seen. One moment it was in front of them, the next it was behind his father. A whisper, curling through the air like smoke. Not bad, but not enough. Then it sank its claws into his father's back. Finn screamed. His mother lunged. The pack howled in rage. But it was too late. His father collapsed. The hollow one stood over him, watching, waiting. And Finn realized they weren't here to fight. They were here to feed. The night air grew thick, suffocating, as Finn's father collapsed onto the cold earth. The hollow one loomed over him, its towering form stretching unnaturally, flickering like a dying flame. Finn wanted to run to his father, but his legs felt like stone, frozen by a terror he couldn't escape. The hollow one tilted its head, as if listening. Not to the wolves, not to the forest, but to something else. Something beyond. Then it whispered, "Hunger calls." And the ground shuddered. The other hollow ones, still lingering at the edge of the darkness, moved. Not walking, not running, gliding. Their bodies bent and twisted as if they had no bones, shifting between shapes that weren't meant to exist. Finn's mother snapped her jaws, stepping between him and the creatures. The rest of the pack formed a defensive circle, their fur bristling, their fangs bared. Finn's father groaned, trying to rise. Blood matted his dark fur, but his eyes, those golden eyes that had always been so strong, were filled with something Finn had never seen in them before. Fear. Finn had always believed his father was unstoppable. The strongest wolf, the bravest. If he was afraid, what chance did they have? Then, a wind howled through the forest. It wasn't natural. It carried no scent, no cold, only whispers. And with it, the hollow ones laughed. Not the way a wolf laughs in joy. Not the way the stalkers had laughed in mockery. This was empty, hollow. A sound that felt like it came from the space between the stars. From the place where things that should not exist still do. The leader of the hollow ones, the one that had struck down Finn's father, tilted its head again, as if considering something. Then, it spoke. "You do not belong here, little wolf." The words weren't loud, but they boomed inside Finn's skull. Finn's breath caught in his throat. What did it mean? His mother growled. "You will not touch him." The hollow one chuckled. "Oh, Mother Wolf, you do not understand. It raised a hand. And the world cracked. The trees split apart, as if the very forest was tearing at the seams. The sky above rippled, as though something beneath it was trying to break free. Then, Finn saw it. Through the cracks in the world, through the broken sky, something was watching. Not an eye. Not a face. A presence. It had no form, no shape. But it was there. Waiting. And the hollow ones were its servants. Finn's chest tightened. His vision blurred. A deep pressure crushed his mind, pressing into his thoughts, into his very soul. Then, a voice, not a whisper, not a laugh. A command. Come. And Finn fell. The world shattered around him, and the darkness swallowed him whole. Finn fell. Not through air, not through space, but through nothing. There was no ground below, no sky above, only an endless abyss that swallowed him whole. His body twisted, weightless, but the sensation of falling never stopped. He couldn't scream, there was no air. He couldn't breathe, there was no life. And in that silence, something watched him. Not with eyes. Not with a face. But it was there. A presence, vast and endless, stretching beyond thought, beyond reason. It didn't belong to this world, to any world. It was older than time, older than the stars, older than the things that lurked between them. It had no form, and yet Finn felt it press against him. A force that wasn't touch but something deeper. It reached into him, into his bones, into his very being, unraveling him thread by thread. Then came the voice. Not loud. Not soft. Not even a whisper. It spoke inside him. You are not ready. Finn's vision blurred. His thoughts became distant, scattered like leaves in the wind. His name. Who he was. Where he had been. All of it began to slip away. But then. A howl. Distant. Faint. But it was real. Finn's ears twitched. His pack. The sound cut through the darkness, slicing through the nothingness like a blade. Finn clung to it, forcing his mind to focus, to remember. His name was Finn. He was a wolf. He was not alone. The presence stirred. It didn't like that. The shadows around him tightened, trying to pull him deeper, but Finn fought. His heart pounded, his body burned, but he refused to let go. And then. Light. Blinding, searing, pure. It tore through the abyss, shattering the darkness, ripping through the void like fire through dry grass. Finn felt himself being pulled. Up. Out. Back into the world. He woke with a gasp. The scent of the forest rushed into his nose. The wind howled through the trees. His body was heavy, aching, but he was alive. His mother was above him, her golden eyes wide with worry. His father stood beside her, battered but standing. The pack surrounded them, their fur bristling, their gazes locked on the shadows beyond. And then Finn saw them. The hollow ones. They hadn't left. They stood at the edge of the trees, their forms flickering, watching, waiting. But they did not step forward. Because something had changed. Finn felt it in his bones, in his blood. The thing that had tried to take him, it had failed. And now, the hollow ones were hesitating. His father's voice was low, steady. You saw it, didn't you? Finn nodded. He didn't have the words for what he had seen. For what had tried to claim him. His mother's breath was shaky. Then they won't stop. Finn swallowed hard. He already knew. This was not over. It was just beginning.
Finn could still feel it. The presence. The endless watching void. Even though he was back in the forest, surrounded by his pack, the sensation of being unmade still clung to him like frostbite. The hollow ones remained at the edge of the trees, their towering, flickering bodies unnatural, as if they weren't fully part of this world. They weren't moving. They weren't attacking. They were waiting. Finn's father stood tall. His body still battered from the attack, but his presence was unshaken. His mother stayed close, her golden eyes burning with a fierce protectiveness. The rest of the pack was tense, silent, waiting for what would come next. Finn took a slow breath. He had survived. But what had he brought back with him? Because something inside him had changed. He could feel it in his bones, humming beneath his skin like a pulse that wasn't his own. His mind was clearer, sharper, and somewhere deep within him something stirred. A whisper too faint to hear, too distant to understand. His father's voice was low. "What did you see?" Finn swallowed hard. How could he explain it? The darkness wasn't just darkness. The Hollow Ones weren't just monsters. They were servants of something older, something greater. And it had noticed him. "I don't know," Finn admitted. "But it saw me." His mother stiffened. His father's expression darkened. The Hollow Ones shifted slightly. Not closer. Not further. Just watching. Finn didn't know how long they stood like that, locked in a silent standoff. Could have been minutes, hours, lifetime. But then the leader of the Hollow Ones, the one that had struck down his father, moved. Not a step. Not an attack. Just the tilt of its head. And then, for the first time, it spoke. "You will come to understand, little wolf." They were gone. Not like shadows fading. Not like smoke dissipating. They simply ceased to be. Finn's breath caught. He looked to his father. His mother. Pack. No one moved. The wind shifted. And Finn felt it. Pull. Calling. A whisper that was not spoken with words but with something deeper. The Hollow Ones may have left. But their presence remained. And whatever had been watching from the void, it was still waiting. Finn wasn't sure if they had won tonight. Or if this was just the beginning. But he knew one thing for certain. The darkness was not done with him yet. Finn could still hear the voice. Not in his ears, not in the air, but inside him. A whisper that had no words, only presence. The Hollow Ones had disappeared, but they hadn't truly left. He knew that. He could feel their absence like a hole in the world, like a wound that had been stitched shut but still bled beneath the surface. His father exhaled, a slow and measured breath. His mother stepped closer to him, her fur bristling. The rest of the pack stayed silent, their ears pricked, their eyes flickering between Finn and the place where the Hollow Ones had vanished. "They'll come back," Finn's mother murmured. His father nodded. "They never leave for long." Finn swallowed. He knew they were right. But there was something else, something deeper than just the Hollow Ones returning. Something had changed. The forest wasn't the same. The trees still stood, the ground was still firm, the stars still glowed above. But the air felt heavier. The night no longer felt like home. And worse, Finn no longer felt like he belonged. He had always been a wolf. Always been part of the pack. But ever since he had fallen into that nothingness, since he had been touched by whatever watched from beyond, something inside him was different. His father turned to him. "What happened to you?" Finn wanted to answer, but how could he explain what he had seen? The Hollow Ones were not the true enemy. They were merely servants. Pawns in something greater. "I don't know," Finn admitted. But even as he spoke the words, he felt the whisper again. Not a voice. Not a command. Just awareness. Something knew where he was. Something was waiting. And then, the ground trembled. It wasn't like before, when the Hollow Ones had emerged from the shadows. This was something else. Bigger. The trees groaned, their branches twisting, their roots stretching as if being pulled from the earth. The wind turned ice-cold, howling through the forest like a living thing. The stars above, they flickered. And then they vanished. Finn gasped. One moment the sky was there. Dark, endless, filled with tiny points of light. The next it was gone. Not covered by clouds. Not blocked by mist. Just gone. As if the sky itself had been erased. The pack whimpered. Even Finn's father, always strong, froze. Then came the voice. Not a whisper. Not inside his head. Roar. It didn't come from the trees, or the wind, or the ground. Came from everywhere. From the sky that no longer existed. From the void beyond it. From the place Finn had fallen into. The place he had escaped. But he realized something that made his blood turn to ice. He had never truly escaped. The thing that lurked beyond the Hollow Ones. The thing that had reached for him. The thing that had let him go. It had followed him back. And now it was here. The ground split open. Not like before, not with tendrils of shadow, but with a vast, gaping nothingness. And from that nothingness, it began to rise. A shape, a form, shifting, stretching, towering higher than any tree, larger than anything Finn had ever seen. Not like the hollow ones. Not even close. This was something ancient. Something endless. And as Finn stared up at it, his body locked in terror, the whisper inside him finally formed words. You were never meant to leave. Finn's heart stopped. The world shattered. Finn could not move. The world around him was breaking, tearing apart at the seams. The sky had vanished, replaced by a vast, endless void. The trees bent and twisted, their branches reaching for something unseen. The ground beneath his paws was no longer solid. It rippled like water, shifting, unstable. And in front of him it rose. A shape too vast to comprehend. A being that had no true form, only an absence of everything else. The hollow ones had been terrifying, but this was something beyond fear. It wasn't just darkness. It wasn't just shadow. It was emptiness itself. And it was watching him. The voice inside his head returned, but it wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a deep, hollow vibration that rattled his bones, a presence that wrapped around his very soul. You are mine. Finn's breath hitched. The pack was still there. His mother, his father, the others, but they weren't moving. They were frozen. Their eyes wide, their fur bristling, but they could not react. Could not speak. Could not fight. Because this thing was beyond them. It had come for him. Finn tried to step back, but his paws sank into the shifting ground. He gasped, struggling, but the more he moved, the more the world beneath him pulled him in. Like it was swallowing him whole. Panic surged through him. His father had fought the hollow ones. His mother had stood her ground. But what could they do against this? Against something that should not exist. Finn's breathing grew ragged. His mind raced. His body sank deeper. Mo. A spark ignited inside him. Mo. Weak. But it was there. He had escaped before. He had fought his way back from the darkness. He had survived. The presence around him tightened. You were never meant to leave. Finn snarled. His body felt heavier than ever before, so lucky.